You're watching Rethinking the Mundane with Jo and Lex.
Where an industrial designer and a creative technologist have discussions and rethink about everyday objects or everyday things in our life that we simply define as the mundane. And today we're going to talk about pop music. That's a good one.
That's great. Right, pop music.
Pop music.
So you are a bit of a music. No, how? That doesn't
Okay.
make sense.
Well,
You know a lot about music.
yeah, I guess my first endeavors in music was trying to learn how to make my own music. And that started in like secondary school, trying to spit bars, you know, with people. And then when it and then still try to record music outside and running Comuzi. Comuzi started around music. At first we were trying to create our own record label, and then we were like, how can technology influence the music industry? And I was very interested in Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber. So they, at the time, Lady Gaga had a manager called Troy Parker. Troy Parker was this really, really forward-thinking record executive who was really interested in that relationship with technology and music. Scooter Braun has always been interested in that side as well. And it became this thing where Lady Gaga at the time had this social network called the Little Monsters, and it was powered by this platform called Blackpain. And I think they were trying to launch these mini social networks that could exist and like build this relationship between fans and artists. And then we were like, oh, we should also try and build our own. And that became Comuzi, where it was this Comuzi app. And simply we were trying to build social networks around artists. How do we build those relationships? We wanted to almost focus a lot on independent artists. It was like, how do you, like, yeah, how, like, similar to what you have now with Patreon or like OnlyFans and stuff, where you can like pay a subscription fee and you can help sustain or do this, and you get content in return and relationship and all of these different aspects of stuff. And that kind of led down the path. And I guess over the last couple of years, a lot of my relationship with music and technology has been on the AI side of things, and we can go into that in more detail, but just that backstory of
I think
music
it's
and tech.
really interesting. The thing about pop music, I guess, is that it has people who love it and people who seem to absolutely hate it. And a lot of the critics criticize its sameness. Like every song sounds the same. But is that part of why it's so popular? That accessibility to it, that sort of it, you kind of know what you're getting yourself in for with pop music.
I guess with pop music has followed a predefined formula
Yeah.
over the years. And when we talk about in the context of maybe now, when we talk about in the mundane, I guess, at the time, pop acts might have been, you know, um, someone who sometimes, borrowed from like a style from like a black artist or something, and then the record label's going, okay, cool. We have this artist who looks like or they look like an act. We have the controlled radio stations. We know how to package them well, and we know we have a formula. Boom, boom, and
yeah, I guess you only have to look at Pop Idol or X Factor or anything like that, where they're putting groups together and they're saying, right, you've got the look, you've got the voice, you've got the dance moves, bish bash bosh, here you go.
Here you go. And then that formula has still like continued throughout. And I guess now with the rise of AI and generative AI being used, I wouldn't be surprised now because of those formulas. It's easy to train an AI model to basically be able to do the same thing. Because sorry, go for it. I don't want to cut you short.
No. I mean, my brain's going. I mean, like you've got. It just feels like it's inevitable. Like, how long do you think it's going to take?
I think it's already been happening now. I remember like 10 years ago, at the time when we were trying to explore music and tech, there was a platform, and shout out the founder behind this platform, Mike McGreedy, and he set up a platform called Music X-Ray. I don't know if it still exists, but he was like a very forward-thinking person where he was interested in like getting people to submit their music. Because back then, the way how you're trying to blow in music is you are trying to find A&Rs that you can either get in front of them. Here's my CD. Let me perform at the local. I don't know what it is. Open mic night in Camden or something. And what Mike was trying to do was this thing of like, hey potential or future artists, submit your music onto this Music X-Ray platform. I'm gonna make sure that A&Rs give you feedback, and he would get them to pay to submit their music, but he would also give like some sort of incentive to the A&Rs to listen to the music. But what Mike cared about was if he could source hundreds of music of different types of music, have these number one experts who are the ones who are meant to define what makes good music or not, have those information, he can train this algorithm.
Amazing.
Which could predict what makes a hit. And that's been that thought process. And because of popular music, it, like you said, has that sameness, or it has you know what you're going to get, similar chords, a sound, from a pattern matching perspective, which AI is normally good at. It works. Maybe compared to like another genre, which might be a bit more experimental, a bit more like this, or a bit more changing with the time, sometimes it doesn't work.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I was just thinking about like what would I class as like the opposite to pop music, and like jazz was the thing that came to mind. But actually, jazz is formulaic. It actually has set rules. You have that freedom within those rules, but if you break out of them completely, then it falls apart.
Yeah.
So like even jazz, which people assume to be very free and very kind of expressive, actually has formula, actually has rules. So is there, I mean, do you think there's any, I mean, as I'm more into classical music than any of these other genres, and that certainly has rules.
Yeah.
So
but what would happen, so talking about classical music, so if you broke the rules in classical, how would that be appreciated by its audience? Because it seems like, because every genre might have some sort of rules, and those rules help to create something and they achieve a framework. But if you deviate from that, what does that A do to the sound? B, what does that do to the audience? What does that do to those who listen or critique the sound?
I mean, I think it's really interesting when people break the expectations of classical music, because you'll take, say for example, like Vivaldi, one of the most popular classical music composers, and you take his Spring piece, and there's been interpretations of it done by different orchestras, and there's a huge amount of criticism, especially if you listen to like the reviews on Classic FM or something of these alternative. It's kind of takes. I guess it's the same as saying like someone doing a very modern interpretation of Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare. It's like there should be a place for that. I think it's really important that we do that, but people will say no, it's breaking that kind of the rule book. I mean, I guess with classical music, in order to bring it into the sort of modern day and bring a new audience to kind of appreciating that music, we have to sort of change it up in the way pop music is kind of the opposite. Like it already has mainstream, it's popular music. That's kind of by definition. Are we going to get to the point where everybody, if we can define what that formula is, everyone just makes that music that is exactly that formula, that even artists are going to start to sound alike?
I think it's happening now, right? I think we're in a place where music as a whole, where a lot of the sort of exploration of music for me has come from is on that hip hop side. I first tried to create, with AI, the hip hop poetry bot, where I was interested in but predominantly there was a lot of AI poetry projects that was happening where you train this AI chatbot, AI bot on the 19th century English poetry database. And I was like, okay, cool. With you're treating on that English. It's very structured. It has a style. It makes sense. It does this. It does that. It works with, computation, all of that type of stuff. Where hip hop is a genre where its rules, there might be rules, but its rules are also quite undefined sometimes. Or the way how a word could be said, depends on like slang.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe's sick. But sick to us could mean you're amazing, you're the best, you're da 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 da, but you're also unwell at the same time. You give that to a machine. How does the machine try to make that prediction where it has no context for the situation? So I was very interested in seeing, could I break the machine with this undefined sort of structure or content and database, which led to the hip hop poetry bar. But you can see it now where recently there was this obsession on stage at this time where you had these like AI, someone was trying to use AI tool to like make versions of Drake songs and stuff. And the lyrical content was so rubbish. But it was so interesting to see how somebody had assumed this is what makes a pop or would make a hit song. And they would try to get the sounds, they try to get the flow, they try to get this, and they were trying to somehow predict that. Where hip hop as a genre is one that's very like, they're still like very purist. Like if a rapper like Nas, for example, someone was to find out that Nas' lyrics is being written by you and I, I'm like, no, Nas, I don't believe in you no more. I thought you did this shit, and that stuff. I didn't even realize to swear on that own. Rethinking the Mundane. But, you see it recently with Google released this AI something generator something with Lupe Fiasco. And Lupe Fiasco is a rapper that's known to be a very, like, one of the best lyricists in the game. And I remember when he posted on Instagram and going to check his Instagram comments, how like some people are like, oh my god, bro, this is really cool, good. Some people are like, oh my god, no, you're selling out, you're diluting us, da 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 da, all of these things. And it's interesting, like this whole aspect of where we're in right now, and we haven't even talked about TikTok, which is
TikTok.
What was the word we used?
TikTokification of music. I mean, I think, like, I'm not the best person to talk to about TikTok. I don't know enough about TikTok, but I certainly kind of feel that the social media influence on music, it's both ways. So there's obviously a huge amount of music that considers how it's going to be presented on social media, and then you've also got the music that's created through TikTok and other platforms that then goes viral, becomes then sampled or used in pop music. And my view of this is like that it's all about that real hook, that catch, that thing that sticks in your brain, that earworm, but also it's about everything's short. And I think about pop music is that it's like songs are like a minute and a half these days. It's like our attention span is just bam, bam, bam,
and catchy.
And it's got to be short, it's got to be catchy, and then it's got to be over and on to the next song. I mean, you can have like a record, like an album used to last like 45 minutes, and it would be 12 songs or something, 12 songs. And now it's like 25 minutes, and that's your kind of.
But that's also, you see, when you talk on that point there about like an album could be 45 minutes, I guess it was that whole argument at the time of like, in the era of like LimeWire and those stuff, the early 2000s, where the argument was like an artist would put an album, sell it for this much, but only 2 songs on that album was really great, and all the other 10 are like fillers. And so people behaviors, right? We're like, man, I'm buying this album, I'm gonna get it for free.
Or take those 2 songs.
Take those 2 songs, you know what I mean? And then obviously iTunes tried to address that. Now you're selling singles for 99p, trying to build this sort of like, how do we design some sort of new models or new ways of consuming music which could help artists? And then obviously Spotify, Apple Music, and all the others, Deezers, and that came in to try to implement that sort of stream, listen to your favorite single. You don't have to listen to an album, but also this aspect of we're gonna help you discover artists. And so now, the algorithm is trying to understand your music taste
Yes.
to sort of suggest you new music. And so we're in this place where songs are shorter, everything's heavily curated to us. So much information exists that we don't pay attention to anything. So what do you do? How do you survive today as an artist? What is the mundane? Pop music has been here. It's still going to be here. But where we go next? How do we think about it?
I think kind of, yeah, exactly what you're saying from there. As our everything sort of around the music industry has just almost feels like it's just trying to get us to remove the need to think. I mean, pop music's so accessible, it's so easy, you don't have to really work hard to get it, to kind of sing along to the lyrics, to get the tune stuck in your head. And that aspect of it means kind of two things. We can listen to it anytime on repeat. We don't need to put a lot of work in to actually, like you would maybe with like like with jazz music or with classical music, that's more of a sort of sit down, appreciate, listen to it, kind of listen to the nuances. I mean, there's so little. You could definitely argue if you're, I'm sure I'd be happy to be counted on that, but there's not as many nuances and as much complexity in pop music. But it does mean that if I was to go to a concert of a pop music artist and they just sat there and played their songs, I would be like pretty like disappointed. I think there needs to be an act. I mean, if you look at all of the best, look at Taylor Swift. I mean, you don't go to see a Taylor Swift concert to listen to her music. You go to see a performance, and there's everything around that then needs to go into it, because if she just sat there and sang her songs, it's going to be pretty bored.
Would you call Taylor Swift a pop act? Because would you say she's country music then? Because sometimes it's like that term. I was even thinking about it. Like we didn't even define what we see popular music as. Because now it's like, because of that whole thing of you can start here and then end up here. Because it's pop music the sound?
Yeah.
Is it the?
I was thinking about this the other day because the Beatles were probably pop music of their time. I mean, they were certainly popular.
Yeah.
But they certainly won't be classed as pop music now. I would say that's more like sort of, rock and roll inspiration. So yeah, I guess the boundaries of pop music. But I would certainly, I mean, you talked about Bieber and Lady Gaga. I would put them under the genre of pop music, but there's always going to be influences. But yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of where that's going to go, where pop music's going to go, I think the next few years are going to be really interesting, because we've got digital pop artists or pop characters like Michaela that are not quite fully AI or digital yet, but like going to get there. And then you've got these formulas that are creating pop music using defining pop music.
Yeah.
AI is going to be getting better and better at it. I think the lyrics is going to be something that's going to be a challenge, but it'll get there. I mean, there's some pop artists whose lyrics are pretty basic. So you put that all together. I mean, there's certainly going to be artists that aren't real.
Yeah.
Out there.
I guess even this question makes me think about, and I guess when we talk, especially with the advent of generative AI in these sort of places, and it's maybe from all creative professions, from ours, from being able to bring things to life from a design or from a code perspective, or and that means artist expression, where it's being, here's a generative AI tool that can create something in 60 seconds. Does this put an emphasis? I think for me, sometimes what I've been saying recently is that, generative AI is only allowing us to produce our most shitty, homogenous pieces of creative work possible. However, it builds this argument of the importance of skill and craft. That real skill and craft will still be important and still be relevant in this sort of hyper fast, hyper automated, hyper generative era that we might enter. I don't know. Who knows what the hype train is? Maybe we might, but like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
If you think like, good artists are up here,
Yeah.
and bad artists are down here, and AI is never going to get here, but it might mean that everyone just. But there's no kind of. It will act as a tool to support the people who are learning, maybe, or honing their skills, or maybe feed into some part of the creative process. But as you say, it's never going to take away from the rawness, the realness, and the skill of some of the most talented artists that we have around. There's just no way, because it's that newness, it's that uniqueness, it's that immediacy as well. It's that reaction to what they're feeling, what the crowd's feeling, what the audience is feeling, what's happening in the world right now, that AI can't do, because it's pulling from past creations to make something new. But yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. So maybe we'll have to do another episode on it, but we should leave it there. We'd love to hear what you guys think. So wherever you listen to this, watch this, comment, and we'll find it and we'll join the conversation. And as we said before, we talked about pop music today. Next week we will be back, sat on this table, and we want more suggestions from you as to what we're going to chat about. So anything you want to hear us like ramble about, just let us know.
Thank you so much for listening to Rethinking the Mundane.